Rogue, the Boss, By Generation, Mavity, Monday Flynn, the Villainguard Corporation, the Pantheon of Discord, the Toymaker's Golden Tooth, Susan Foreman, Omega, the Ronnie, and just a few other things that need to be explained and tidied up in this last episode of this season of Doctor Who. Perhaps the very last of RTD2. Welcome to the All Trades Jack channel. I am the titular, titillating Jack, and I'm back with another USA from the USA. In this series, I, a big-headed and uninformed American, speak ad nauseum about the British cultural institution that is Doctor Who. All while trying not to become an enemy of the crown, of course. But today's USA, I'm taking it easy. I'm relaxing. For those of you who have seen my previous essays, you know this isn't my usual recording space. And for those of you who have seen Reaction Jackson, my series where I react to the episodes the night after they drop, you know that this is my normal recording space.
Say hello to the sofa of reasonable comfort.
With the end of the season coming up, there's just too much to say. There's more than I can say in any of my Reaction Jackson videos about the things that are happening. And there's going to be a whole retrospective video I've already promised you guys that's going to come next week about the season as a whole, perhaps the Disney era as a whole. But I haven't really had time to talk with you guys more about the season up to this point before the finale, now that I've had a chance to sit with some of the episodes. And I am going to take it kind of in pieces, not exactly in the order that I mentioned it all in my intro, but I am going to take it kind of in pieces and we'll talk about these various different elements. And I'd like to start with some of the ones that are not this season's fault necessarily, but again, this is all RTD, so it's not like this season gets a pass for it because it's just RTD kicked this can too far down the road and now he's got the finale left to do something with it. So the first thing is things that were mentioned in the 60th anniversary episodes. Those are things like the Boss and Mavity. Those are things that have been let's start with the Boss because it's pretty much a one-off. I'm pretty sure it's a one-off. We heard a lot about, He Who Waits and the Toymakers Legions and all this other stuff, and I'm pretty sure all that stuff paid off. The Toymakers Legions have been the Pantheon of Discord. Gotcha. Cool. The one who waits was Sutek, we can assume. They never said it directly, but I think that was the assumption, is that he was the one who waited because he was waiting on the TARDIS or in the TARDIS or however the hell that worked. Doesn't matter. That was all resolved. But the Boss never was. We never got a clear answer on who the Boss was. So we still have to get that. And did you hear that? This is a running theme. This is my cat getting fed. He'll be so happy. Anyway, the Boss, some people say that the Boss is just going to end up being Mrs. Flood. And okay, that's fine. That works. But saying Mrs. Flood is the Boss doesn't really answer the question of the Boss. It's not just a matter of saying a name for a person. It has to fit the story. The Meep was turning to the Boss, called the Boss the Boss. Now bear in mind, this is the Meep, who was a dictator that slaughtered all of their people and a bunch of other people because they thought so much of themselves and thought of themselves as such a high person on the cosmic totem pole. And this is the same person who made a big deal, just like the Ronnie was calling back to it, about the definite article. This is the Meep. So if the Meep is going to call somebody the Boss, that says a lot about their character, and it says a lot about their relationship with the Meep. But Mrs. Flood is not the Boss. We've already seen that Mrs. Flood is not the Boss. She spent the last episode making sandwiches and finishing sentences for her shadow clone. She's no boss. She's definitely no boss. She's a stooge, which and she might even be the stooge. Definite article, the stooge. But she's not the boss. And even if she was the boss, and if we believed that just the Ronnie generally is the boss, why does the Meep work for the Ronnie? What has the Ronnie been doing that they need the Meep? Because the Ronnie's a scientist who doesn't do anything for just no reason. They're not chaotic. They are not the Master. As much as they tried to, portray the Ronnie as the Master in this last episode, the Ronnie is not the Master. They have to have a reason for doing stuff. So we need to know who the boss is. Just saying it's the Ronnie doesn't make any sense. We have to wrap up what the relationship is with the Meep. The other one, though, that I mentioned was Mavity. And Mavity is a bigger problem because it runs throughout the series. We keep hearing Mavity. It was right at the beginning. It was in the episode where the salt line was cast at the edge of the universe. So it's in a paradigm shifting moment, and Mavity is part of that change. And this is significant because everything else we can attribute to the line at the edge of the universe. All the goblins and all the gods and all the magic, that's all because of David Tennant. But Mavity happened before that. That happened in the cold open. So it's its own thing that needs to be addressed and resolved, unless it's just Mavity forever. Unless we really just changed time and Isaac Newton said Mavity and that's it, then I think... I don't know. We need to have some kind of answer for it. It doesn't need to be a big one, but there needs to be some sort of resolution to Mavity. Otherwise, that joke is going to wear really thin, really fast, even if it does take 2 years to see the next episode. The other part of that 60th anniversary leftover stuff is bi-generation. We explained bi-generation in a kind of hand-wavy, it's magic, it's the rules that you played as the toy maker, all this other stuff. But I don't know how all of that applies to Mrs. Flood. I don't know why she bi-generated. And I'm hearing a lot of chatter back and forth online. I don't try to watch too much of spoilers or leaks or things like that. But a lot of people have been talking about other bi-generations that are apparently going to be canon. And I don't know. I just feel like if there's going to be a bunch of bi-generations, we really need an explanation for it. We really need a deeper explanation for why it's happening and what its limitations are. Let's talk about limitations, because 12 regenerations was a number. It was just a number, maybe because the 13th life would be unlucky because that's the one you die, maybe that's it's just a good magical sounding number, 12 regenerations, 13 faces. But realistically, it was a number that was far enough away in the future when it was introduced that it let the show run on for decades without having to worry about running into it. And then overcoming that was a matter of, a storytelling hurdle to work through, but they did, and to varying levels of success. We'll talk about it in a future Who SA, but that's not the point of this one. The point is, they only overcame this number when it became clear that the show had outgrown that number's usefulness and they needed to move beyond it to keep telling the story. They didn't just create an infinite doctor, because that kind of robs the stakes and also throws off the scale of the story in a way that stops being relatable to human people watching the story. And I think that's part of the reason the Timeless Child plays kind of weird. It's not that it was a bad idea. It's just that its placement in the story feels off. Because we didn't need it at that point. The Timeless Child would have been a great way to deal with Matt Smith's regeneration. Or it would have been a great way to reboot the series into the Disney era. But where it's placed in the timeline just feels kind of strange. And I feel that same energy with what's going on right now and bi-generation. Because if it was just something we did to get into the 60th anniversary and to start a new era with a new doctor, great, I love that for you. You bi-generate, girl. But if we're doing it as a new staple, like every regeneration is a bi-generation, or anyone is capable of bi-generating whenever they want to, we are not at the point in the story where we needed 2 Ronnies. And last episode showed just how little we needed 2 Ronnies. And, we had fun with 2 Masters in Michelle Gomez and John Sims. Those were a fun pairing of Masters. But let's get another Master before we get 2. I don't know, man. Let's resolve what happened with David Tennant's Doctor before Shooty becomes another 2 guys. I don't know. It makes me nervous. It really does. It makes me nervous what they're doing with bi-generation, and I need them to put a rule on it. You know what I mean? I need there to be some kind of limit on it. I need there to be rules. There are no rules to bi-generation right now, and it turns it into a multiverse of madness where nothing matters because the stakes become non-existent. The stakes are already hard enough to buy into when you're talking about a character who can not die, but if there's limitations to what not dying looks like, you still give a crap about them. But if bi-generation becomes too broken or too unlimited, it's going to rob the show of a lot of its stakes. And I don't know, I feel it creeping in with this finale, and I'm hoping this finale will put a dampen on that. Speaking of this, we also have to talk about the fact that it is the finale, and it is potentially the last episode, and it is potentially the last episode for a long time, and the rumors abound with Shooty. There could be a regeneration for Shooty this episode. I already made my prediction of what a Shooty regeneration would look like. I'll repeat it here. This isn't so much a prediction of what I think will happen, but what I think is the healthiest thing to have happen is that if you're not familiar with it, there's a 4th Doctor story. It's his regeneration story. It's called Legopolis, and he is followed throughout the series, which lead up to it, by a weird gray specter thing that ends up laying on top of his dying body, and they meld together. And he regenerates because his regeneration was, for some reason, prepared for. We're not really ever given a reason for why his was different. But Shooty's would have a reason to be different. He could be dying in a way that he couldn't regenerate. That's my prediction, that he's going to die beyond death, and it's going to take David Tennant coming back and pulling a Legopolis and going back into Shooty to become the next Doctor. That's my prediction. And I also predicted before that we won't see that next Doctor. It'll be a cliffhanger ending, because this could be a golden parachute where if the show has to go off for a long time, it goes out on a high point of speculation and whatever else, and anyone could come back. Anything could happen next, I think that would be a really great starting point. But I don't know. That's my dream regeneration at this point. But that was my prediction before there was another bi-generation. And with the Master's Tooth still in play, I just don't know. There could be another bi-generation. And with the identity of everyone not known, there could be more Time Lords out there and more bi-generations that are either happening or have happened. Here's an example. Monday Flynn. We still don't know what the deal with Monday Flynn is. I don't buy she is a descendant thing. My cat's all kinds of hyped up. I don't know if you hear all that sound, but that's Ketchum. Anyway, we haven't gotten any answers about Monday Flynn. And I've been complaining all season that Belinda is a 2-dimensional, hollow character with no background, no family, nothing tying her to the world that she supposedly misses so much. And that feels, I don't know, it's infuriating to watch. But there is the potential that this is not accidental. It could be that she's intentionally a blank slate because she's not real, right? She could be like a John Smith. She could be tricking herself into thinking she's human. She could be under some kind of spell, and she could be a Time Lord or somebody or something, you know? She could be the Master, you know? She could be a bi-generated doctor. She could be the next doctor, you know? And then we explain away her lack of character building because they didn't want us to like this character too much because it wasn't going to be a real character. I hope that's not what happens, because the fans will backlash, because that's the wrong way to go about it. You got to make us like a character if you want us to be excited about that character actually being a cool character. Like, I don't know, if you want to tell me somebody is secretly the Doctor or secretly the Master, I either need to love them or hate them. I can't be lukewarm on them, and I'm so lukewarm on Belinda. Speaking of the Master is one of a handful of bad guys that have been teased out that we need some resolution on before the end of this season, the end of this series. We need to know what is going on with the Golden Tooth. Where did that end up? Right? We don't have to see the Master, but you showed us a hand. Right? You could have just, if you really wanted to say that the Golden Tooth was out there, you could have shown the Golden Tooth falling off the building, and we would just know it's out in the world, and anybody who was interested in the Master could have found some sort of plan, scheme, whatever, to find the Golden Tooth. But you showed a hand picking it up, which means you have some idea of who has this Golden Tooth. You need to let us know who that is. Catch 'em, please, sir, I'm recording. But it's also not just the Master. There are others. Villainguard has come up multiple times, and I know that is a long time bad guy for this era. Like, this was the Doctor Dances, I think, or not the Doctor Dances, but the Empty Child, where the idea of Villainguard first came up. But it's been coming up throughout the seasons, throughout the series. I made a couple of fan theories regarding Villainguard already. I'll rehash a couple of them here just for those of you going into the finale who haven't been watching my essays, or my reactions rather. I had the thought that the star that Belinda's boyfriend Al bought was the Joy Star. I also had the thought that the drones from the corporation, their leather has kind of like a V taper to it, and it has like the little cutaway in the middle. So I was thinking that maybe those drones, I hate the name of the corporation, and I would love to have a reason to not hate it so much, because I just think it sounds unoriginal. But if they're just obfuscating the fact that it's the Villainguard Corporation, that could be something. That would be a redeeming thing where I could be like, okay, this thing I've been complaining about all season, check, that's better. So there's them, the Villainguard Corporation, and then the big one, of course, is the Pantheon of Discord. Now, it's weird to say, what do you mean they're resolving it? There's a god in this episode. Yeah, there's a god in this episode, sure. But this god just, it amplifies all the questions I already had. How many gods are there? We've named a few we haven't seen. We've seen a few we've never named. Right now, it's infinite. Right now, you could come up with any number. It's just like the Regenerations thing. This Pantheon of Discord thing, it needs a limit. How many of them are there? Because writers into forever will just keep coming up with new gods. And with the power scaling of the gods already as wonky as it is, you're going to end up with a really goofy pantheon. I mean, it's already the goofiest pantheon you could possibly imagine. It's like, okay, if I wanted to make a pantheon to encompass all of the universe, what would I need? I would need light and dreams and music and death. Really? Those are I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It's cool that you didn't go with the most cliche ones first, but like, I don't know. That's your pantheon? Like, it just seems weird. How many of them are there? What aspects do they cover? You know, what is in the realm of the gods and what is not? You know, because if this god arc is going to continue on past this season, we need to have some rules for it. Otherwise, it just doesn't... It doesn't ever feel like you've beaten them. It's one thing to not beat the Daleks, because the Daleks keep coming back. They're recognizable bad guys. We find new ways to utilize them. They are a few simple ingredients you remix over and over and over again. But the Pantheon is more like having an infinite number of ingredients and trying to remake the same meal with it over and over and over again. It's not gonna work. There's only so many substitutions you can make. It doesn't matter how exotic the flavors are. It doesn't fit the story. And we've seen it. And it's not new. It's not new enough. That's not interesting enough. You know, you can't just make a space baby giggle and then have that be enough to say, and that's why the Ronnie can breathe people into ducks. That's not enough. We need some rules for these gods. If not rules, just a general outline. Like the 12 regenerations. Just say there's 12, you know? And then there can be a 13th, because of course there is. But like, just say a number. Just say any number. Just make it something. Give us some boundaries so this thing doesn't get out of control, because it already feels out of control. Because, like, here's the thing. If Doctor Who never comes back after this episode, let's say the Doctor wins, right? The Doctor wins this episode's conclusion. Are the gods beaten? Are we done fighting the gods now? Or are there just 20 more? Like, is it going to feel like a season finale? Is it going to feel like a series finale? Or is it just going to feel like another monster of the week was beaten? Because there's too many of these to be special. You know how you know there's too many of them to be special? Because there's gods in every season, in episodes other than the finale. You had multiple gods show up in the middle of seasons. They are literal monsters of the week. They're not special anymore. I don't know. I just feel like if you don't rein them in a little bit and then build up the ones you've got, you know? Because, for instance, let me give you an example. I hated Lux. Mr. Ring-a-Ding was a huge letdown. He wasn't a very good god. He wasn't very powerful. He wasn't very threatening. And ultimately, if all he needed to do was what he wanted to do, which was go outside, and there was nothing stopping him from doing that, it just seems like he's not a very good god. But maybe it's because he got trapped in the Ring-a-Ding film. But there's all kinds of things that can capture light, whether it's film or whether it's crystals or whether it's, you know, anything, your eye, you know, anything that can capture and interpret light could be a host for Lux Imperator. He doesn't have to be Mr. Ring-a-Ding all the time, you know. Bring Lux back, and there you go. You bring back any one of the gods and give them something new to do, something more to do, and you can build them up rather than just building out of just how many gods can we stack up, because the answer is infinite. You can just keep doing this forever. All I know is they have to find some new status quo for the gods by the end of this episode. I don't know if Omega is going to be considered a god, but considering he's been lost this whole time, he can't be the top of the Pantheon. Maybe he could rise to the top of the Pantheon, but he certainly isn't the top of the Pantheon right now, right? So I don't know who the Doctor would need to beat to make this god arc come to its end, or at least to come to a new status quo where we can keep fighting gods, but maybe they're not like so all the time. I don't know. I don't know who that is or who that needs to be, because they haven't really given us a really good idea of who the gods are. Because, I mean, think about it like this. All these gods are messing with the Doctor because they're the Toymakers Legions, right? So that means that in the hierarchy of gods, toys are up here, and light and magic and dreams are underneath toys. I don't know if Sutek is. I think Sutek was his own thing. He was out there waiting. Because, yeah, the toy maker said that's somebody else's game. So he doesn't mess with Sutek. So Sutek was his own thing. But all these other gods have been the toy maker's legions, right? So light and music are subservient to toys. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know what kind of pantheon you've created, but we really do need some rules. Anyway, I'll move on because I could complain about this one forever, but that we do need something from this finale regarding a resolution for the gods. But it's got enough on its plate just dealing with the things it has to resolve from what Lucky Day started. Not Lucky Day. Wish World. What Wish World started. There were so many things with Susan and with, well, I guess that was set up in Song Contest, but there's Susan and there's the Ronnies and there's Omega and there's Poppy. And, man, it's just so much to resolve. I don't know how they're going to wrap all of this up, considering all the other things we've already talked about in this video that are still hanging loose from this season. This is also considering that you have to find time to resolve 2 companion arcs. Belinda and Ruby are in tow for this, and Russell T has done it before, but to be fair, he's done it badly. Do I need to remind you all of how that really went? Like, I know he did the whole Avengers before Avengers thing. He brought all of the Hooniverse together from Torchwood and Sarah Jane and all the companions from his whole era, and they were all working together, and that was all swell. But he didn't really do much with a lot of those characters. A lot of them became corridor run-along buddies, and I don't know, a lot of them, their stories end in places that are undignified. Whether it is in that story or in the story that follows on, he didn't actually know what to do with all the plates he got spinning. You know, if we want to be generous, we could say, you know, that he was trying to, you know, do something cool for Mickey and Martha when he tagged them up together in the final episode of his series, or you could say that it was lazy, sloppy writing, and he just threw these 2 leftover characters together because he didn't know what else to do with them. The point is, he's had loose ends that he has sloppily tied together before. I don't know why people trust him so much, because I'm feeling so weary about Belinda. Like, what is he gonna do to her story? She's had no story. If he's not got some big bad wolf twist in mind for Belinda and the Monday Flynn thing, it's sad that is like, there's the option I would prefer, and there's the option that I think is going to be better for the story at this point. And it's really sad because I would love to see Belinda just have a good story about her and her family and her like want to go home and all this other stuff. And they haven't told that story enough to do it well at this point. And the best thing they could do is to turn her into a space MacGuffin. And that's unfortunate. But I guess, you know, like I said, whatever happens with her at this point, I just need her to have a respectful ending. You know, I can't just have her get married off to Mickey Smith. That will not do. I won't have it. You know, I will rage. I'm not actual Mickey Smith. I mean, like somebody of Mickey Smith caliber. But there is nobody of Mickey Smith caliber because we don't have characters this season. We just have concepts. We have concepts of characters. It's unfortunate. I can't even think of a side character you could marry Belinda off to if you wanted to marry her off. But I think that the main ones they'll definitely wrap up. I don't have any doubt in my mind that they'll wrap up the Ronnies or Omega because, you know, they're going to have some sort of plan for them. If I have my prediction, it's that Omega is going to play the same role that Rassilon played in The End of Time, where he's going to be a big looming threat that is like trying to breach, but never quite does. And maybe we'll have a standoff in the last like couple of seconds of the episode, you know, last couple seconds of the third act at least. and they'll have a big standoff, and he'll get pushed back into the nowhere void. That's my prediction. I also predict that, obviously, it's not even a prediction. This is just obvious. Ronnie Lesser is going to turn against the Ronnie, probably early on in the episode. If they're smart, they'll do it early on in the episode because we all know it's coming, and you just get it out of the way. But if she's still around by the time Omega is breaching, she'll probably be there to undermine that. Either way, Omega, I don't think Omega will play an actual role. If they're smart, Omega won't play an actual role because they could make him a future threat that we can now look forward to. You know, those of us who did our Omega homework and were like, oh shit, I guess that's who Omega is. Let's get ready to meet him. And it's a big scary altercation with the Ronnie, but we never actually deal with Omega. Omega is just a threat. And now if he gets used later, we've been primed for Omega, and Ronnie gets a chance to be the bad guy. That's the best way they can do that. I hope that's the way that they're doing this. That's the best. I can't think of a better way for them to handle it than that. Because if it's just Omega shows up at the start of the episode and there's two Ronnies and Omega walking around the whole time, I don't know. That's a lot, guy. That's a lot. Unless you're bringing in multiple doctors. You know, if you're bringing in multiple doctors, then maybe it's not a lot. You know, if we have multiple companion teams and multiple doctor teams, then sure, then this could be done. This could be done. This could be done. But I don't know. I don't know anything. If I haven't heard anything about other doctors coming back. Obviously, David Tennant is benched. He's there. It's a question of whether or not David Tennant's in the Wish world. You know, if the whole world turned into a Wish world, the Doctor was there. Interesting. Whereas it's the Avengers problem, you know? You can't read an Iron Man book without wondering where Hawkeye is, you know? Because that's where everyone's wondering is where Hawkeye is, because he's the one who could really just end any problem. Any problem could be solved with a bow and arrow. But that's not the point. It's got that energy, though, where as long as David Tennant's around, you're always wondering, why isn't he there? Or is he there? Or if he is there, what is he doing? And if he's not there, why is he not there? You know? So I'm wondering about whether or not David Tennant is in the Wish world. It could be a way to deal with the larger stakes. For what it's worth, I mentioned in my previous video that as a strapping young lad of 23 or something like that, I was really excited about the 50th anniversary because I was thinking, I knew David Tennant was coming back and I knew there was going to be a third Doctor. I don't think we knew who it was at the time, or at least I didn't. And I was thinking they were going to do 3 Doctors and they were going to bring back Omega. That was my big thing. I thought they were going to do Omega and 3 Doctors. So, I think that the idea of having Omega for a multi-Doctor story makes sense. The Ronnie has only had a couple of stories, but one of her last official appearance on TV before she just showed up was the Dimensions in Time. And that was also a multi-Doctor story, whether you like it or not. So the Ronnie and Omega on their own are multi-Doctor level threats. So it would stand to reason that you bring some more Doctors in. I don't know. That would be the only... It's funny because I'm saying it's like, oh, it's so overstuffed. You know what would help it? More stuff. But no, I think it actually would help to address a lot of the storytelling and a lot of the narrative like conflict that you'd have to work through. If you've only got one lead guy, you know, you can't have... You're putting a lot on Shooty. He's going to have to carry this episode. And I don't know. I'm not saying you can't do it, but like that's a lot. It's a lot to throw on a single actor. But I don't know. It is overstuffed. I do think that those elements will be resolved. I have every faith that they're going to resolve them. I don't really have every faith they're going to resolve them well, but I do have every faith they'll resolve them in some way, shape, or form. I also think that whatever happens at the end, I think that Ruby is going to end up being the companion who goes with the Doctor. Whoever the Doctor is, I think it's going to be Ruby that goes with them. I almost said with her. My instincts are saying female. I don't know why. But anyway, I do expect the regeneration. I will double down on that. I expect the regeneration. They may do a Twice Upon a Time where the regeneration starts but doesn't go off until the next episode. I could see that happening. Maybe they're going to do a Christmas special, maybe. I think that is the nicest thing they could do, is leave it for a Christmas special. Because then if the show does come back, it can be a Christmas special that leads into the next season. And if the show doesn't come back, we can have a Christmas special that resolves where the story ended and give us all a nice, happy, warm send off on Christmas, so we don't have to be sad about Doctor Who going off the air. We can all say goodbye in a meaningful way, rather than just have a survival situation where they tack on an 80-yard line at the end of the episode to let you know the show's not coming back. I don't know. I'm nervous. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm nervous. I had other plans for what video I wanted to do, but I had to talk about some of this stuff because, I don't know, it's driving me nuts just thinking about it. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. I know there's not much time before the finale. I'm posting this. If it goes out on time, it'll go out Friday morning. So I know this is kind of last minute, but hopefully you all will get a chance to see this. And if you vibe with it, give it some love. If you have any thoughts that could put my mind at ease, please challenge me. If I'm saying things that you're like, dude, you're freaking out about nothing, let me know, please. I need the copium. I need it bad, doc. But I will see you guys back right here on the sofa of reasonable comfort. I'll see you back here I'll see you back after the finale to do Reaction Jackson. And then I'll be back again next week to do the season retrospective. We're going to talk about everything that has happened this season from a less of a what do we want out of the finale standpoint and more of a what did we think of the season standpoint. So we'll come back to it all in due time. This again was more just I had so much to get off my chest before the finale. And I don't know. I'm going to try to go in with an open mind, open heart, and just don't hurt me again, Doctor Who. Please just don't hurt me. No, but seriously, guys. Seriously. Just be cool.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe.
What? Click below to subscribe.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe. Well, how could I possibly forget that? For goodness sake. You got the message, haven't you?